You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Gasper Stare, attorney in Detroit and Indianapolis at Marko Law. How are you, sir?
Good, Benny. Good to finally officially meet you virtually here anyways, after all the chit-chatting we've been doing.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks. It's great to have you. Congrats on all your success in your young career.
I appreciate that, man,
Yeah.
and thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So you have a pretty cool background, like, you played some football and stuff, but of course I like that. But let's start a little earlier. Where are you from originally? You have a little story there, right?
Yeah. So I say Central Europe, just to avoid the additional questions. But to answer yours, Benny, I was born in Slovenia. It's a
Okay.
small country next to Italy.
Okay.
Former Yugoslavia. I was born there, and at a young age, my immediate family anyways, we immigrated right across the river here in Windsor, Ontario, Canada.
Wow. Okay. So do you know how young, or do you have any memories of that at all?
Yeah, I do. My whole family is still there except my immediate family. So I mean, I go back often. I love Europe. I'll probably eventually retire there one day as well.
Wow.
Knock on wood.
Nice.
So yeah, I love it. I still keep in contact with my aunts, uncles, and cousins as well. And yeah, I think I moved when I was around like 3 or 4 years old. I was real small.
From Slovenia to Ontario? Okay.
Yep, Windsor,
Nice.
Ontario. Yep.
That's awesome. So, just right off the bat, sometimes you see people who have an experience like that. They might be an immigration lawyer. Is that something that ever crossed your mind?
No, and
No.
not to
Okay.
say
Well,
anything,
how
it just
come?
never has.
Okay. All right. What's that?
Yeah, it just never has. I don't really know why. It's just not really my forte. Although I've done a lot of immigration work, believe it or not, both for myself, even before I was an attorney, and now
Yep.
even sometimes I give some legal advice and I help out some people when I can, because I've been through the ringer so many times, especially with TN visas and things of that nature and F1 student visas. But no, it's never really crossed my mind to actually do it. I'm more of a fighter. I have an aggressive type of
Gotcha.
nature and mentality and relentless type of mentality. So I'm definitely more suited for the courtroom or boardroom in that respect.
What do you mean by the boardroom? I saw that earlier. What are you doing in a boardroom?
Yeah, so I mean, in boardrooms, we have depositions, we
Okay.
have facilitations, we have mediations, and ultimately we have negotiations.
Yep.
And so I say boardroom as kind of like a catch-all
Yep.
phrase, and to sound cool or whatever, but that's what it is in reality. Is I mean, people don't realize. When I say people, I mean the general public doesn't realize that most cases throughout almost every legal field that I'm aware of, including criminal and especially civil, they get resolved outside of the courtroom.
Right. Right.
You
And
know,
that's sort of it's the boardroom. That's where you're having
right,
big discussions.
right,
Okay.
right.
Totally.
Although sometimes it could be cruxed into a lunchroom at
Doesn't sound as
at an
good.
orthopedic surgeon's office.
Doesn't sound as good. You're not going to say, I'm in the courtroom and the lunchroom. It doesn't,
Right,
it just
right,
doesn't
right.
have that ring, man. All right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I get it. That's cool. So,
Yeah.
so you obviously, you went to school, you went through college, you were a college football player. How do
Yeah.
how did you balance that, being a college football player and graduating summa cum laude? Just tell us about college.
Right. Well, first I want to say that was once upon a time ago, and at least probably 10 or 15 pounds ago.
Dude,
But
we're all there. Don't worry about it.
yeah. How I balanced it all, it's looking back on it now, it's kind of funny. I really don't know. I would say the way I did it was just a drive and motivation to get the hell out, if that makes sense. So I loved football. I definitely enjoyed my time in school, but the moment I stepped foot on campus, I was like, what is the fastest, most efficient route for me to finish? Because that's what I came to school for ultimately. I came to school to get a degree, have a good experience, and to move on. I looked at university collectively as one big task, similar to how I do with my cases. Okay, how can I get the result? What's the most efficient way to get this result for all parties, right? For me personally, when it came to school, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So fast as possible was my number one concern, and
Okay.
as fast as possible because I obviously wanted to go to law school, so I knew grades were important and things of that nature. Um, More practically speaking, I mean, being a football player, being an athlete, any type of student athlete, I don't care what level you're at. People think, oh, it's just Division 1 or nothing. No, I played Division 2. I'm proud to be
Yep.
formerly part of the GLIAC conference at Saginaw Valley State. And let me tell you that the coaches, the program, the athletic department there, they set up such an awesome schedule
Yep.
for athletes. All right, you got 6 a.m. lifts or runs. Thereafter, you got study hall at 9 a.m., breakfast, workouts, lifts, practice, class, team meetings, meet with your advisors. They're on you. And I love that because it incentivizes you. I'm looking at it this way. Okay, I love football. At the time, I had a dream to continue on with a professional football career. I also realized that football was they were paying my tuition and fees. Yeah. So I was like, all right, if I want to be successful at football and get all the benefits of that, I got to be kind of good at school. Also, if I want to be good at school, I got to show up and do what I got to do. Right. So it's they were both kind of mutually, incentivizing each other, at least the way I looked at it. On one hand, I wanted to play football. On the other hand, I wanted to be done with school and get the hell out. And so they both helped me kind of motivate to get it done.
Well, that's interesting that you wanted to get out of there because usually somebody playing football would want to, make the time last a little bit and have that career. And
what? You're right, and it's funny you say that because I've had people. I mean, I know a lot of players that they played 6-7 years, especially now with the whole medical red shirt COVID situation, and you got the transfer rules and the portal going on, all that stuff. Again, for me, I was very motivated and determined from the beginning. All right, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. If I don't get this, this is my option. So yes, I wanted it. I wanted the football dream. I wanted to play professionally. I actually got a call from the CFL once upon a time ago, but I knew quickly that, hey, I was getting injured. I was getting battered in football. I tore my shoulder, other stuff, right, too. I'm like, all right, I need to take this school seriously because this is the rest of my life.
That's smart.
And that's what football was to me. Being from Windsor, right out here, across the river, I can tell you, ever since I was a kid, looked out my bedroom window, I saw the GM building, the Renaissance building, which symbolizes the skyline of Detroit. And as a young Canadian kid, you ask most of the people I grew up, that symbolism represented the American dream.
Yeah,
it definitely did for me, I can say. And so, you grow up with, Eminem on the radio, right? Detroit legend. You grow up with Lions, Tigers, Red Wings games, the news being, I mean, all of our music industry, the world follows America for the most part. It's a leader in a lot of those respects. And here I am on the front door of it, trying to figure out how the hell can I get right over there? It's not far away.
That's interesting.
It feels far. It was physically not far away, but realistically, it was mountains and mountains away because I'm still not an American citizen. I wasn't at that time either. And as a Canadian kid, you're kind of trapped in this bubble of just, it's better to stay home, stay here, especially when you talk about the educational system there. It's completely different. SATs don't exist. ACTs don't exist. Those are all things I had to kind of figure out on my own okay, this is what I got to do to get over there. How do I do it? And again, football was the catalyst and the motivation.
Yeah. Well, I think beyond that, with football, just learning how to have a schedule and to have a regimen and be disciplined. I think football probably made you so disciplined that when you got to law school, it was easy for you to get up in the morning, treat it as a job. Whereas some people they learn the hard way. They go right to law school from undergrad, and they'd kind of I don't have class till 11. I'm going to sleep till 10, that sort of thing. Right. So I think you probably learn so much invaluable things from being on a college football team.
Right. I'm going to get scolded for this. I have before. I honestly thought and think that law school was easier and better than undergrad. I will stand by that to the day I die. I just did not think law school was as hard compared to what I had to go through undergrad. Really.
Well, is that like excluding football? Like if you didn't have football, would you think
Even
the same thing?
football, because, and again, this might be more subjective. Law school, you don't really have that many assignments, right? You're it's kind of like a sink or swim type environment, law school, which for a lot of people, I totally get. It can make you paranoid, it can make you anxious, it can
Yeah.
make you unwaver, all those things. For me, it's like, all right, in undergrad, every day, every week, it was like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Whereas in law school, it gives you the freedom to work at your own pace. And that's how I am. I like to do things at my own pace, the way I want to do it, because law school is ultimately mostly 100% final exams, and it's up to you to figure it out. Right. And for a lot of people, that's anxious. For me, I'm like, you know what? After my first semester of law school, my 1L year, I'm like, I did all right. So
yeah, no, that's amazing. And you know what? Going back to like the college thing, like I just saw a clip today of one of Deion Sanders' assistant coaches or something talking to the room at Colorado, saying, 98.5% of you will not make the pros, and he was saying you got to know what you're going to do in life, and then he was talking about going out on the field and wanting it. But what advice would you give to college athletes regarding their careers?
Their athletic careers or professional careers?
Professional, like going from in case they're not going to make it, looking at the full picture, right?
Yeah. Have a job in mind. And this is what I mean by that. I knew I wanted to be an attorney. I didn't know exactly, what type of attorney necessarily or exactly what field, but I knew I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to go to law school. So I came into school with a job in mind. Now I understand for other people, they're trying to sort it out. You got to narrow something down. And the sooner you are able to narrow down what you want, the better it will be. I mean, how many stories do a lot of people know of where somebody decided to go to school to, let's say, become a nurse?
Right.
And then they said, I don't like it. Now I'm going to go to become an engineer. Well, all that work, all those credits, they don't apply to become an engineer. So next thing you know, what should have taken 4 or 5 years is now taking 6, 7, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, the sooner you can figure out what you want to do, who you want to be, the better life is. It is cheaper, it is faster, it is more efficient, and that is anything. The sooner you make a decision, the better every other decision is. Well, then, I get to say, well, how am I supposed to know? At the time, you're 18 years old, whatever you are, right? I was fortunate. I had a mentor in Windsor who I really, really looked up to as an attorney. So my answer to those concerns that, a lot of young people have would be, go and ask. Ask. Go ask somebody for a coffee. Go ask to shadow someone. Talk to your parents. Talk to your teachers. Hey, I noticed so-and-so is a mechanic. I would really be interested just to shadow him for a day. Or, hey, I heard so-and-so is a doctor at this unit. Can I shadow at the clinic for one day? Whatever it is, go out and do it. But a lot of people don't want to think that way. A lot of people just, I want to party this weekend, or I'm gonna play video game, or whatever they're gonna do, and they keep just delaying what I call the inevitable. Eventually, we all have to make that decision.
Totally true, 100%. That's the way to do it. What you're saying, it's just hindsight's 20/20 for 98% of the people out there. So you just touched on actually my next question, which was when did you know? Did you have a moment, or when did you know you wanted to be a lawyer?
Yeah, there was no defining moment, but as I mentioned, I had a mentor in Windsor. His name's Bobby D, one of the best criminal defense trial attorneys in at least our region, southwestern Ontario. He was somebody that kind of brought me under his ring a little bit, and he kind of showed me around. He didn't just show me, he showed me the courtroom for the very first time. He introduced me to judges for the very first time. I got a funny story. When he first invited me to come to the courthouse there downtown Windsor, I never owned a suit. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I begged my mom, pleaded, we need to go somewhere. So I remember we went to a local, Men's Warehouse store or whatever. Sure. And we just slapped on a suit, and none of it fit. So I had to put duct tape underneath to kind of make
the old roll the leg.
Yes, and I remember going through courtroom security. I'm like, oh my God, please don't let this duct tape fall on me right now. So I would have been so embarrassed. I don't think he even knows that story or what I did at that time. But
Yeah.
Anyways, he kind of just showed me around. He showed me, how the legal system works, what it entails, and I loved the personality of it. You know,
Yeah.
people always say you should do what you love. I think in order to find and do what you love, you got to know the personality of the job and if it fits with
Yeah.
your personality. Every
Yeah.
job kind of has its own personality if you think about it. And being a lawyer, being an attorney, a trial attorney fits my personality. You're in and out of courtrooms, you're in and out of boardrooms, you're talking to multiple different people, whether it's judges, prosecutors, opposing attorneys, clients' families, experts, doctors, engineers, you name it. And that fits my personality. I'm a very sociable person. If you can't tell, I don't know when to shut the hell up.
No, it's awesome. I love this
So
info that you're giving about that. And you can tell you're so passionate, man. I'm happy for
thank
John.
you.
He got a good one. I could tell already in the first 20 minutes we're chatting. So,
Appreciate it.
um, what-
No, I'm
so
lucky with John too. He's been awesome so far, and
yeah,
I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But
yeah, yeah. No, the whole firm seems cool. We've had a few of y'all on the show. So, like you went to law school in Indiana, right? So what was
yeah,
that like? You're very outgoing. Are the people like pretty quiet there? Or, like, how did that work out?
man, you would be surprised.
Okay.
Indianapolis has got it going on. Let me tell
Okay.
you.
All
I
right.
was downtown Indy. Well, I'll tell you right now. Okay, we got the NFL Combine every single
Okay.
year. We got the Big Ten Championship every year there.
Okay.
We also got the Indianapolis 500. We had during COVID the entire March Madness tournament was hosted in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I think 2 years ago, we had the National Football Championship game there. And coming up this year, we have the NBA All-Star game in downtown
Oh,
Indy.
is it
So,
really there this year? Yeah.
yeah, so don't hate.
What
Don't
about
knock
the? No, no.
Indianapolis.
I was talking really more about like the law school. I mean, I know you have like a lot of cool stuff there. I mean, you have. Yeah. I mean, I used to remember like the. I'm a big Celtics fan. Like I used to
Yeah,
remember like the Pacers Celtics battles and all that. But I'm talking about like the law kids and all that. Like, was it
sure.
sort of? Were they pretty chill? Like.
Yeah. So first, I'll say about the cities. Indianapolis is a city, very much like Detroit. It's on the rise. It's booming. So I
Okay.
highly recommend whoever listens to watch this, give Indianapolis a visit. 4 hours down the road, it's worth a weekend. But in terms of the law students and the environment, really, I didn't really go to another law school, right? So I can't really compare. But I will
Yeah.
say, just my experience from going to undergrad and living around the world and moving from Michigan to Indianapolis, it was a bit of a culture shock. Now,
Yep.
this is gonna surprise people. It has previously when I've told this story, but when I walked in my very first day of school, it was civil procedure with Professor Pitts, who is now, I believe, the vice dean of McKinney, Indiana School of
Okay.
Law. And I walked in and I was shocked by how white it was.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't mean that in any sort of
No,
derogatory
no, no.
negative way.
I've had
Seriously,
experiences like that too. Yep.
right. I'm like, I'm white and I'm walking in there, like, holy crap, this is the whitest room I have ever
Yeah.
walked in my
Yeah.
life. Right. And but in terms of environment, everybody was kind of chill. I will say, this was back in 2016. So that was the whole, Clinton Trump thing going on, the election
Yep.
cycle at the time. And oh my God, when people thought, if you look at just today's political climate, I think that was kind of like the birth of today's political climate because it was just so black and white at that time. I was very surprised by just how very passionate Americans are and law students specifically when it comes to certain, just policies, beliefs, etc. So it was just a real, like I said, a culture shock for me as a European Canadian kid.
Yeah.
Played football, which is a very diverse locker room as a
Sure.
football
Yeah.
room. But beyond that, I enjoyed it. I really loved McKinney. I really love law school, and I really do believe it was not, I want to say easier, but better to go through than undergrad.
What advice do you have for law students?
Ooh, yes. I kind of help out some law students right now, and it's the
Okay.
same advice that I've told them. It's kind of like in your professional world or whatever you're trying to, you get a mentor. What I did is I found an opportunity to meet with 3Ls. Usually most law schools, they have some type of orientation program process where you meet 3Ls, but those are just, couple minutes, whatever, off the cuff. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. No, no. Actually sit down meet with the 3L student, or even a 2L, but preferably a 3L student. Invite them for coffee, invite them for lunch. We're all students. The $5 is worth advice. And you sit down and talk to them and say, hey, first get to know them, right? Don't just like if you're dating with somebody, just don't lean in for the kiss right away. You got to work your way, right? In this instance, you're talking to 3L student, get to know them, and then you hit them and you say, hey, I have my schedule. Do you mind if I kind of like go over this with you and get your opinion or thoughts on it? And next thing you know, you're going to find out, oh, I had this professor, or I had that professor. Oh, I still have that textbook. I'll give it to you, whatever. Next thing you know, you're getting all the inside information. It's almost like insider training. It's like you're talking to the people that went through it. And you come to find out, especially in law school, these professors, they kind of keep the same curriculum and course, especially when it's such a short window between 1L and 3L. That's only a 3-year window.
Yep.
So that's what I recommended.
Smart.
Reach out to 3L, get to know them, and start creating an outline. So what I always did, this is the next piece of advice I'd give for law students, is if you can get a blueprint to the class, why not start the class with the blueprint and kind of edit as you go? And that's what outlines are. I mean, there's outlinedepot.com. I think there's all these web pages now with, school outlines. And for those that don't know, an outline is essentially a summary of the course and the materials covered. So you get those outlines. I also ask these 3L students, hey, can I get a copy of your outline? Or if you don't have one, do you have a friend that has an outline? Yeah, absolutely. I got my outline. Boom. So now I always brought 2 copies of outlines. And I'm telling you, I did this for every single class in law school. I had 2 different outlines. I had them printed out. And every single class, I would either check that we went through it, or I would cross it out, or I would add an edit. And it was awesome because it was like, I'm going through and I have everything right here in front of me and I'm confirming if this is still the same material that we go through. Boom.
Right.
And by the end, I created a master outline and I just memorized the crap out of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's great advice too, by the way. I hope people really take that up. So, let's move on to after law school. So you end up in Chicago, right? Like you're in Chicago. That's like a big feeder city for people in Indiana, is it not?
Yeah, well, it's ironically the tables have kind of turned since the whole work from home type situation. But you're right. At the time, pre-COVID, pre-work from home, Chicago was it's the closest biggest city. It's about 2 hours north of Indianapolis, and it's Chicago, right? It's the big mega city, right? And so for me, it was an interesting situation. I had a tough 3L year. I had a lot going on, just both personally, but as well as with school. Because what I did is, I learned really quick, especially in Indiana and with the political climate, whenever recruiters, and law firm attorneys and whoever you meet at the OCIs, which stands for on-campus interviews, the moment they found out I was Canadian, there was always just that negative indication, whether the tone of the conversation changed or can you even work here? Like, how's that? Is that going to cost us money? How much? All these red flags kind of came up the moment people found out I was Canadian. Okay. In a real way, I was getting a lot of negative bias for being Canadian. Wow. And it's not. I don't say that because people are being prejudicial or intentional. They just didn't know, just ignorance. Oh, that sounds like a headache. When you're talking about the political climate at that time and immigration and everything, people were looking at me like this guy's either going to be a headache or he's going to cost us money to get him legal authorization to work. And guess what? None of that is true. There is a special unique visa called the TN visa explicitly for Canadians as well as Mexicans, but it used to be part of the formal NAFTA agreement. But the bottom line is, you can get a work visa so long as you're on a list of qualified professionals, and it costs $0 for the employer to pay. None. Right. It doesn't cost them any work either. So the bottom line is, what I did was I realized quickly that I had an uphill battle to obtain employment, especially at that time. It wasn't like today. It was hard to get a job. It was very hard to get a good paying job at law school, especially at the big firms. Right. So I'm like, I thought, how do I get over this obstacle? I need some kind of competitive advantage. The only competitive advantage I could come up with, Benny, was graduate early. write the bar exam as early as I can and be the first to market, right? You got a pool of hundreds and hundreds of law students. The only way you can separate yourself from the pack is by literally separating yourself from the pack. So that's what I did. I took law school. I took overloaded credits. I remember at one point, I think I took 19 credits in one semester for law
And they
school.
let you do that at law school? That's crazy.
I needed permission. Which I got. And thankfully, I also worked in the dean's office, so it was helpful to maintain those types of connections and relationships. Yeah. But bottom line is everything was above board. They had to sign off on everything, and I took my summer classes, et cetera, et cetera. Next thing you know, I met the requirements by December of my 3L year that I was able to sit for the February bar there in my final year. So while 90+% of my classmates were still finishing their last semester, I was focused on my bar exam, and I passed.
That's amazing because you passed your first time, but that's amazing. You really bet on yourself, because if you didn't pass the first time, you would have been all for naught. You know what I mean?
Right. I will say I was highly motivated at the time to get it done. So I'm thankful. Hindsight, looking back, everything has could not have imagined it working out better. So I'm thankful for that. And next thing you know, I threw my my name in the hats. I sent my resume everywhere, and next thing you know, I'm getting calls for interviews left, right, and center. In fact, I joined a firm in Miami, and I ultimately turned that down. But point is all the people I spoke with and interviewed literally told me, "You're the only one with your license that's able to practice." And besides the fact that the interviews went well, I was getting job offers, multiple job offers, and ultimately I decided to go with Chicago because I wanted to leave Indianapolis, kind of expand, kind of learn. Yep. That's where I started. I started downtown Chicago. I was actually in the Northwest region as well, called in Maryville, Indiana. So the office was really out of Northwest Indiana, but the main office is out of Chicago. And so a lot of times we communicate all the time between those two offices. But I was doing federal work as well. A lot of state court action. A lot of it was actually even out of Indianapolis, but with Zoom and everything, there wasn't too much travel involved.
Right.
And still a lot of good guys there at that firm, Cassie Shade. I want to shout out Joe Lombardo. Love him. He's great. And there's a few other guys there as well. So yeah, that's kind of where we went.
Was that the first or second firm you went to in Chicago? I know you worked somewhere sort of like a short stint, maybe a year, and then
so I think you're talking my like summer associate positions.
Okay, all right.
So I first clerked in my 1L with Steve Wagner, there in Carmel, Indiana, personal injury firm, which is ironic because now that's what I'm doing is PI work.
That's awesome.
Thereafter, I did a stint with a firm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I was doing some litigation work, both on the business side and on the just general civil litigation. And then I also worked at Cummins, which is the headquarters is out of Columbus, Indiana, but they also have a massive building there in downtown Indianapolis. And that's where I was doing a lot of in-house work. I worked for some really, really great people at that time in my short time there, including, Sharon Barner, Angela McDonald Fisher, Dinesh Castellino. They're just great people. Wow. And they all just showed me, just a different side because it is such a rare, I don't think people really realize this. I didn't realize this, I don't want to say how hard it is, but how unique and different in-house counsel is and difficult to get into because a lot of in-house positions require X amount of years of either very, very specific work or certain types of legal work, sometimes up to 10 years of experience. So you don't really get a taste for most lawyers. I'm not going to speak for everybody because there's always exceptions and I know people that are exceptions to that rule. But for the most part, you don't get a taste of in-house work until first you're essentially their lawyers. That they become your clients because as defense attorney, you represent them, you kind of build that relationship, you do well, and then over time you end up getting poached, so to speak, to go in-house.
Yeah.
So bottom line is my work there at Cummins was awesome. They showed me a lot about the in-house aspect of things, and as well as just the expectations of what they go through day to day, and the negotiations of it all. It was awesome. I still maintain good contacts with those guys and those people there, and I loved it. I really did.
Yeah, it seems like you've kept like good relationships throughout the year, which I think is very important for people to know here. Like, don't burn bridges. keep
Right.
relationships. Try to like even when you move on, like try to acknowledge people and
Across the board,
across
across
the
the board.
board.
I don't care if you're a lawyer, a
Yeah,
doctor, a
totally.
mechanic, whatever you're doing, because you never know. You
Right.
never know what can happen. I mean, I tell people I didn't think I'd be here right now today. I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting
So
to be here.
speaking of being here, Gasper, like tell us about
Yeah.
the transition over to Marko Law.
Yeah, so John Marco here and Craig, I've had kept in good contact with them over several years. They actually tried to get me way back when I had just graduated. But at the time, I wrote the Indiana bar. I wasn't trying to write the Michigan bar, and my focus was in Chicago at the time. Before I then went to Indianapolis for a few years thereafter. Um, and so eventually the timing was right, the offer was right, the stars sort of aligned. And like I said, that's an example and a testament to maintaining relationships. It's not like I was talking to
How
John
did you
every day.
meet that? How did you know John? How did you meet him?
Yeah, I'll tell you. What I did was I cold emailed him years
Right.
ago,
Yeah.
when I was just throwing my hat or my name in every hat
Yeah.
possible. And he decided to reach out to me. He talked to me, spent time talking to me, and Craig as well. We first started on Zoom, Craig and I, and thereafter, John took me out for lunches and dinners. We just maintained that contact because
Yep.
I still had family in Windsor, so every time I came back, I made a point to try to meet with Craig or meet with John, and so we just kind of kept that relationship
Nice.
going
Yep.
over the years, and then eventually the trigger was pulled.
That's awesome. So now how's the transition been? Like how long have you been there now? You haven't
Yeah.
been there very long.
No, I've been here since June, so we're talking under 4 months.
I mean, look at that. They got that nice photo in the background over there that's like the Mona
Yeah.
Lisa or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just kidding.
That's actually the very first lawyer, I
Is
guess.
it? That's
Um,
John's first associate. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Wait, so
Yeah.
how's it
So,
going? 4 months? I mean, you seem like you're doing pretty well. I mean, it's
yeah. Well, fake it till you make it, right?
yeah.
I mean, as much as I love to pat myself on the back, credit goes to John and Craig here,
Yeah,
and even my fellow associates, because I bombard people with questions as often as I can.
sure.
And that's the thing people don't realize. I've seen the other day. I was at a health clinic. The doctor was literally Googling
Oh, that's
something
good.
related to my questions.
That's
So
good.
let me tell you guys, we also we also talk to each other and ask
Yeah.
questions and advice. Don't think that any lawyer or even doctor is just a know-it-all and knows everything off the top of their head. No, we all need resources. We all need guidance. But to answer your question, the transition has been great. I did. It's different because I came from predominantly criminal defense. So we talked a little bit about Chicago, but after I left Chicago, I came back to Indianapolis, and that's where I joined Banks and Brower. Brad and Adam, they're awesome guys. They kind of put me in a sink or swim environment. Here are your cases. Here's what you got to do. Figure it out, and I did. Thankfully, I did, and that's kind of my mentality anyway.
Yep.
So it really suited me. That's what I was used to from football and just my upbringing. And Brad really resonated with that, and I loved him for that, and I still do. He gave me free reign to just figure it out and go do it, and I did. And what was awesome about that criminal defense work is it got me in court a lot. I mean, almost on a daily basis, I'm in court. I've done multiple bench trials, been a part of jury trials. I've done highly, highly contested, motions, dispositive motions, depositions, cross examinations. I've cross examined FBI detectives, police detectives, state sergeants, professionals, even a lawyer at one point. I mean, it was awesome, and then you get to mix and match with all sorts of clients.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whether it's your stereotypical drug dealer, all the way to high
Yeah. Yeah.
power executives that people would be surprised needed my assistance or a criminal lawyer's assistance. So that really gave me a lot of exposure to not just differing personalities among clientele and different legal needs among clientele. Because I also did licensing disputes, whether it was a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer that was about to lose their license
Wow.
or whatever the case was. It also gave me a lot of exposure to just differing venues. I mean, I was going across the entire state of Indiana. I was also even appearing pro hoc vice out of state. I remember doing one hearing out of a Minnesota court and another one out of Chicago.
Wow.
And the point is, the administration of justice is very different, not state by state, but county by county and even courtroom by courtroom. I kid you not. I won't drop any names or anything, but there's a courtroom in Indiana where if you have, for an example, a DUI, or known there as an OVWI, over operating vehicle while intoxicated, on the same floor across the hall are two different courtrooms, different judges. You can have the exact same charges and almost identical facts, but each judge is going to completely give you a completely different sentence.
Wow.
Or have a completely different threshold on what type of plea agreement they would accept. So it just taught me how, wow, like here I am thinking I know what the law is and, you know, what I learned in law school and what literally the black letter of the law states. But really, you got to know the judge and you got to know the prosecutors. You got to know the lawyers you're going up against. And, you know, that made me think of something. John's got a really cool, like, washcloth that he has in his kitchen. And it says a good lawyer knows the law. A great lawyer knows the judge. And that's true. And I would expand that a great lawyer knows his venue.
Yeah.
Know the room you're walking in. Because that's how it is. So point is my experience doing criminal defense work really exposed me to that. And so now in this transition, I've really kind of narrowed down and been much more focused with the guidance of John and Craig now.
That's great. So what are you handling now? Personal injury mostly?
Yeah, mostly personal injury. It's funny you say that. I got a criminal case I'll be doing tomorrow and wrapping up with somebody. So I still do a little bit of criminal here and there, but my main focus now is personal injury, civil rights, catastrophic injuries, motor vehicle injuries, PIP claims even. What else I got? Construction site accidents, products liability cases. I've done a lot of provider suits as well. You name it, they've been giving me a lot of exposure, and I really appreciate them for, not just having the confidence in me, but just allowing me to do it and giving me the free reign to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I'm sure that John's been a good mentor and everything along the way. And,
he's awesome.
Yeah.
If you can catch him, he's in high demand right now.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, no, I bet.
Sometimes I feel like I got a schedule with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, you got to do that with your boss sometimes. But do you have any advice? Like, what advice do you have for young lawyers?
Young lawyers just starting out?
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, your managing partner, boss, whatever you want to call it, they're your number one client. They're your number one client. And I mean that. Your clients are the ones really paying your bill. It's the firm, period. As a new lawyer, you don't just get all the money that you bring into the firm or that they give to you. No, that's not how that works. You have a salary, you might have whatever the case is. The bottom line is your boss, your managing partner, the lawyer you work for is your number one client. They need something, you go the extra mile. Hell, I'll even admit, I sometimes ask, hey guys, I'm by the Starbucks here. Do you need anything? I'll send a text. Why not? I'm already at a Starbucks. Why not send an offer? Would you like a Starbucks as well, right? For example. Or if something needs to get filed, I show up at 8, 9, 10 p.m., whatever it takes to get something filed or get something done. It's the foundation. So my first advice is, like I said, treat the person you work for as your number one client because it's part of the foundation you lay. The second part of that foundation as a young attorney is growing your network. Get out there. Join the Detroit Bar Association or your local bar association. Join these, focus groups, these young attorney groups. Meet people. You're not the only one. We're not the only one. I do it. Every excuse. I mean, hell, you're getting free booze out of it half the time anyways, or at least free, food. Take advantage of it. I mean, it's your career. That's the thing. I think a lot of people, especially my generation and even the younger generations, I don't think they distinguish or know the difference between a job and a career. This isn't a job.
Yeah.
This is not a job.
I get that 100%.
You know what I mean? Like being a lawyer, being an attorney, working for a firm, that is not a job. It is a career.
For sure. And yes, I have that conversation with some of my employees too. So I get that. Being an attorney is different though. Like people have to, and I would hope that most attorneys look at it as a career, not just a job, But I don't know. Like maybe they don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't work in a firm.
Right. I mean, to each their own. I'll say, it's not just the money. It's you got to realize especially on my side, the clients we take of here at Marko Law, this is their livelihood. We're talking about mothers, children, relatives, family members, real people who have been catastrophically impacted in a negative way, and they came to us.
Yeah.
Right there, you gotta have. You can't be human without having some type of not just sympathy but personal responsibility, right? Because for instance, could I quit this, quit the firm here tomorrow, walk away, or whatever the case? Sure, that could happen. Not saying it would, but as a human being and as an attorney that takes on a career like this, that sticks with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even I still think about clients that I represented years ago. I still think about clients that from the firm that I no longer work at anymore.
Yeah.
Here, like that part of that stuff really affects you, impacts you,
It's amazing.
So you got to take some type of personal responsibility when you're doing your work, which just adds to the fact that this is a career and not a job.
That's amazing. So what? So like, I was reading up about it, and like you are like a rising star for super lawyers, which is super cool. Super cool. Rising star, right? So, and you do have a ton of like positive reviews. I've saw that, like, verified reviews. Like, what does all that mean to you? Like those accolades?
To me, it means I'm doing the right thing, that I'm headed in the right direction. It also means to me that it's, in a weird way, that it's not enough. Like it's not like I said, it means to me that I'm doing the right thing. I'm headed in the right direction, but that's not enough. Okay. I'm glad that I achieved a lot of results. I'm glad that I'm building a good reputation. I'm glad, for the super lawyers and Thomas Reuters for acknowledging me and recognizing me, but that's not why I'm doing this. That's not why we're here. And quite frankly, that doesn't pay my bills either. Those things are bonuses, right? Those things are, it's like your boss giving you a pat on the back, or somebody telling you did a great job. That's what that means to me. It's so on a personal level, it means a lot. It really does, because there are nights where, I mean, if you're a lawyer and you've never questioned why you took this career path, I don't think you're a lawyer. You know what I mean? Sometimes I lay my head at night, with just a mountain of stress and responsibility, thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why did I do this? Having those accolades, having that recognition, and having those clients take time to leave a thoughtful personal review gives me the motivation to go on, even for an extra day or whatever the case situation means. So that's what it means to me. It means that I'm heading in the right direction, and that when times are dark or when times are tough, I can refer back to those to kind of remind me of why I do what I do.
That's awesome. Super impressive, man. Seriously, a lot of good stuff there. I really appreciate it. Did I leave anything out? Anything you wanted to talk about today?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm excited to be here. I said, growing up across the river, this is home for me. Love the Red Wings, hockey town. Lions are finally good.
Lions are good, man.
Good.
Yeah, Lions are good. Lions are good.
I just appreciate the time. I really hope, that this is helpful, not only for lawyer stories, but anybody listening. And I whoever ends up listening, honestly, please reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. You can Google me. I could give you all my information right now, but you're going to forget it by the time you hear it. So like I said, just Google me. Not hard to find. Reach out to me, email, cell phone, whatever.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll even take people out for coffee or a drink, whatever. I don't mind. I really don't.
That's awesome. That's really nice, man. And hey, Gasper Stare, keep up the good work, man. And stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourself.